Yo, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Xblick right here with you guys. And now, as you can see, this will be the final part of What If Deku Had an Explosion Quirk. I was trying to get just all of this out by the end of 2021, which, for me, this is the last day. For some of you guys, it may be the second to last day or whatever, but as I'm recording this, I'm about 3 hours away from midnight, and yeah, so at that point it'll be 2022. If you guys are hearing this in the future and you're like, oh, we're already in 2022, well, that's cool, but just for, as you guys know, right now, I'm about 3 hours away from 2022, so yeah. Just that's it, so that's pretty cool. I'm not sure how this is gonna go, how long this is gonna be. I've just kind of stacked the rest of the story into one part, so it's probably gonna be like 1 or 2 hours, maybe like a full-on movie length or something like that. So yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. Like, I do want to thank my boy Saint for the music in this video. If you want to check him out, then the links are down in the description. And yeah, just remember, God is awesome, you guys are too, and just like, subscribe, all of that jazz. And let's just get straight into this epic what if. Let's go! For the next few days, UA is in disarray as this giant explosion leveled the entire UA stadium. Multiple heroes and students and audience members are killed. Tens of thousands of them are injured as this all kind of goes on, as a lot of characters that we personally do know are affected. Prison Mike was crushed and killed under rubble, and Aizawa is in critical condition with both of his legs crushed and his body pinned down, crushing multiple of his organs. As also other characters missed Joke, and other of those heroes have been pretty much had the floor underneath them just collapse as they all fell to either their deaths or multiple just heavy wounds and injuries. And multiple students like Todoroki and Bakugo especially have been quite injured as the rubble started hitting them. And yeah, as other characters like Endeavor was slightly injured from this as he was in the stands and probably underneath the stands as he was watching this. All Might was also a little more injured as he was hit by a few pieces of rubble, some of them hitting his weak spot, some other bits just hitting him quite hard, as just the entire scene of this giant incident is horrific, as they can't put it on the news or else it will break multiple laws. As yeah, like, it is the most horrific scene you'll ever see. Students, heroes, families were massacred and ruthlessly murdered. As pretty much a couple hours after this kind of explosion happens, Deku does arrive back at Daika City to see the news of the UA bombing, as Redestro does congratulate him, as he says, "Well done, my boy. You have shown the world that the Meta Liberation Army is not to be trifled with, and that we are serious." As pretty much they then go talk about how they will progress further, as Redestro then starts talking. "Now, Izuku, my boy, I think it should be almost time for us to reveal ourselves. We've been in the dark for far too long, and we shall soon show the world that quirks should be used. Soon we shall remove the suppression of quirks, and we shall soon be using our quirks all freely. As a few days later, Deku is walking around the streets, kinda trying to blend in, as he then feels and sees this weird purple smoke surrounding him. As he's walking, he then walks into a bar, as he sees a kinda young man around his age with a hand on his face. So you must be the League of Villains that attacked UA. As Shigaraki, he does confirm this, saying, "You must be Detonates. We've been looking for you. And, well, seems we have found you. We could use someone of your skills to help us with our matters." I can't do the Shigaraki voice at the moment, sorry. I've got kind of a sore throat. But he does say that they do start to try and recruit him, as Deku, he does think about this for a while until he does eventually agree and say yes. Now, if we flash back to the meeting with Redestro and Deku just after they were talking and after we left them, as Deku then starts walking away, Redestro then tells him that you might be kind of recruited by the League of Villains, or whatever they're called. As, well, they seem to try and be a serious organization, so they may try and recruit him. So, if that's the case, accept the offer and go in as a spy. As back in the present, they then kind of sort out a mission plan, as Shigaraki then talks about the hero killer Stain. As Stain then is kind of teleported in by Kurogiri and Shigaraki, and Stain really doesn't want to be part of this League of Villains that Shigaraki wants to kind of create, thinking that it's just a band of random people that really aren't that cool. And since Deku isn't known, like his name is known, but he himself, no one knows what he really looks like, Stain doesn't really care who he is. So the same interaction does happen, as Stain then charges towards Shigaraki, as Deku secretly flicks a kind of little tiny stone, like, you know those really annoying stones that you get in your foot, like the tiniest pieces of gravel? Deku quickly flicks one of these stones onto one of Stain's kind of clothes, and getting it caught up in his clothes, placing a bomb on him. As this all happens. Since this was like a couple of days or maybe a week after the UA kind of bombing, the internships do not happen, since just an international, possibly global event has just happened. As pretty much the internships don't happen, therefore Deku either doesn't go out. He does hear about Ingenium, but he can't go out to kind of see him, or can't go out to avenge him, since he isn't on internships. And yeah, so a few days later, the Hosu incident does happen, as kinda Shigaraki still doesn't really like the attitude that Stain put against him, so Shigaraki does send out the Nomus, as they go out and kind of go insane, but Deku does place bombs on them. So if they are defeated, they do have an automatic kind of explosive switch on them, so that if they are defeated, killed, or kind of grappled onto and defeated, I can't really think of the word, arrested, I guess you could say, they will automatically detonate, causing a reasonably large explosion. As pretty much they do kind of but the big fights, as Endeavor, he still decides to go to Hosu, and he does find the hero killer. And Stain, before he can kill Native, Endeavor does cut him off. Or would he? No, I guess Stain would have died. No, before he kills Native. There you go. Alright. So before he kills Native, Endeavor does kind of intercept him, and it's kind of taking him down. As after he takes him down, one of the Nomu, the flying Nomu, does fly down and try to attack them. As Stain, he does jump up and kill the Nomu. However, or put down the Nomu. However, as he starts doing this, the Nomu does detonate. As kind of Stain is thrown into the wall from this explosion. However, his resolve doesn't weaken, as he gets up and starts saying his same speech, how all heroes are fakes, and that the only hero that is worthy of the title is All Might. As pretty much straight after this, Stain kind of collapses and falls, or he doesn't even collapse, he just falls unconscious, as some of the police and heroes start to approach him. As this happens, one of the heroes puts his hand on Stain, as Stain's shoulder starts glowing. As everybody's wondering what's happening, as Stain detonates, as a gigantic explosion occurs, blowing back like everybody in the vicinity, killing the multiple of the heroes and the kind of police officers that were surrounding Stain at that point, injuring a whole lot more. As a few weeks or so kind of go past, or not even that, a few days go past, as the other villains do arrive. As pretty much after this, they are told about the forest camp, as they have had kind of insight that kind of they will be going to a forest camp to train on their quirks, since, well, they need to train up since the villains are getting a lot bolder. As after this, Deku does relay this info to the Meta Liberation Army. A few days later, they all of the villains and everybody is sent to the forest camp, as they arrive, and they have the same-ish plan as before, as they're told they need Katsuki Bakugo and anybody else that piques their fancy. As after this, Darby does ignite the forest, and Deku lets off explosions in the trees, causing gigantic explosions, definitely catching the attention of the heroes. As this happens, some of the students are taken down by the villains, as Uraka and Sue are approached by Toga, as even though Uraka hasn't even had that training, so they are put down very quickly. Since Uraka hasn't had the training from Gunhead, she doesn't have that fighting style or anything that can help her. Therefore, they are put down very quickly. As up on a hill, Muscular does attack Koda. As this happens, Muscular goes up and prepares to pretty much punch Koda, killing him, However, as he throws down the punch, his punch is grabbed by someone. As he looks past kind of the fist, as he sees a red-haired boy, as Kirishima is holding onto the fist with red lightning shooting all around his body. As Kirishima, he then pushes Muscular back, or pushes his fist back, as he jumps up, hardening his entire body, but specifically hardening his fist to be as hard as like obsidian or something like that, as he punches as he punches Muscular square in the face, shattering his skull, sending him flying. But as this happens, Kirishima's arm does also break, causing massive gashes across his arm and through the cracks of his hardening. After this, Kirishima goes to check on Muscular as he sees that he is out cold. As we flash back 1 year earlier, as we see Kirishima, before he had the red hair, as he's walking across the street contemplating how he's not a real manly man, or that he can't really be a hero, as he hears some girls scream. As he looks over the street, as he sees some of the girls from his school being kind of dwarfed by this gigantic villain. As Kirishima, he's just thinking like he has to do something. Like he feels his body like he's terrified out of his life, but his body just acts as his body moves without him thinking. As he runs up and pretty much does the same thing as Mina, as he runs up and tells the gigantic villain that he should, like, pretty much that he is kind of the directions of the police station. As after this, the kind of villain is defeated by All Might, even though I do think it was Gigantomachia that it was. So let's just say All Might sees this, even though his time limit is up, he could not kind of really intervene, as he does see this and tells Kirishima about the kind of his quirk and offers Kirishima all for one. No, one for all. He offers Kirishima one for all, and yes, so Kirishima has got one for all. As back in the present, he looks down and sees Muscular is out cold with his face caved in. As he is on the ground and completely unconscious, Kirishima turns and looks towards Koda, giving him a smile. As Koda begins to smile as well, starting to walk towards him, until he sees that Muscular is beginning to glow. As Koda, he kind of sees this, he's wondering what's going on, as he quickly alerts Kirishima, saying, "Hey, behind you!" As Kirishima looks back, seeing that Muscular is glowing, he jumps towards Koda, ready to protect him, as Muscular explodes, causing a gigantic explosion on that cliff face. As Kirishima, he does grab onto Koda, protecting him, but severely injuring Kirishima. As pretty much Kirishima is out of the fight for now. It's back kind of to the base of the heroes at the kind of internship place or whatever. As back at the base, Uraraka runs in as the heroes kind of tell her to go inside and go inside, as Eraserhead and King Vlad are in there. And she goes in, but she does seem a little bit different. She's not really as cheerful or whatever. Or she doesn't seem as the same as she was. And she goes into the building as little grains of sand are slowly dropping behind her. And she starts walking, but she doesn't walk to the classroom. She walks to the back exit. And she walks out. She forms back into Toga. As she then walks a bit further away, clearly away from the building, as she presses a button, as Deku then gets an alert on a wrist watch kind of thing that he has, as he snaps his fingers, blowing up the entire building, injuring multiple more students. However, King Vlad is able to protect them with his blood, but still pretty much cutting them off from everybody else, and kind of hurting some of the students and King Vlad. As Deku looks out, kind of in front, out of the forest, as he sees the giant explosion occurring, as the kind of explosion does occur, as he sees the entire building fall, as he's quite satisfied with himself, thinking that was an alright one. It wasn't too overdone, it was just right. He's a real masochist, like, he needs help, seriously. But yeah, so Deku does start walking back. As he walks back to see Darby, and Mr. Compress does fly over as he lands, as they have captured Bakugo. As they go back, if you guys are wondering why they haven't captured Tokiyami, I can't be bothered. Like, that's pretty much it. Like, I can't really think of an idea where they do capture Tokiyami. It's just easier for the story to go on. Kind of him capturing Tokiyami won't change much through the story that I'm putting it through. So, yeah. As pretty much they go back to the base through the portal with everybody else kind of coming through. Now, the rest of the villains that were defeated are kind of defeated. And yeah, pretty much that's how that goes. So, just to make it a bit easier, the rest of the villains that were defeated are defeated. The same ones are the same. As pretty much they go through, Bakugo does wake up to see that he is in restraints. As he is kind of being difficult. He is kind of being difficult. And Darby does go up to kind of restrain him. However, to remove his restraints, as Shigaraki has told him so. Kind of the same entire thing happens. Bakugo kind of is just difficult and explodes Darby in the face and all of that. As Deku, he kind of his phone starts vibrating. As he's wondering, oh, what's that? He's faking. Oh, what's that? As he walks out of the room. As he walks in, as he kind of looks at his phone, seeing that it's a text from Redestro telling him that they have arrived. As this happens, he hears a knock on the door as somebody says, "Pizza delivery." As everyone's wondering, but who ordered pizza? Like, what? As a giant explosion kind of goes on, as they hear, "I am here!" As the rest of the villains kind of go on and get captured by Kamui Woods and all of that. As Deku does walk back out and kind of sees Kamui Woods is holding the kind of all the villains, so he decides to pull out a pebble as he's kind of flicking it up on his thumb, kind of like you'd flick a coin. As he's flicking, he is flicking a coin. As he's flicking a coin on his kind of thumb, as the rest of the heroes and villains do see that, as they're wondering what's going on, as Deku then flicks the kind of coin towards Kamui Woods, as everyone's thinking oh, it's not going to get far, as it shoots like a bullet towards Kamui, hitting him square in the face, then detonating, blowing the kind of rookie hero back considerably, quite much, injuring him. As after this happens, they then all have this kind of black sludge coming out of their mouths as they then are teleported. As they kind of all arrive, everybody's wondering like what's going on as they see All For One. As Deku, he looks over, he's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And as All Might does arrive and starts attacking All For One, Deku flicks kind of sand and some pebbles onto All For One and All Might. Or not even All Might, just All For One. As he flicks onto it. As pretty much Bakugo does escape as the same as canon with Ida, Kirishima, who has been kind of healed at this point. As he has been healed enough at this point, and Todoroki, Momo, everybody except for Deku kind of is there, and Kirishima both takes the Deku and Kirishima role as he is kind of escapes as the same way. As after this, kind of the battle does happen, Kurogiri kind of All For One does kind of do the same thing as he shoots his tendril fingers or whatever towards Kurogiri, force activating his quirk, creating a portal. As he force activated the portal, he then tells Shigaraki and all the villains to go through the portal and to keep going. As pretty much as this happens, like he kind of goes out as the rest of the fight does go to canon, as All Might kind of does the United States of Smash as he punches All For One, defeating him, but also, kind of losing all the juice and losing One For All. As later on, like the later days, All Might does go to meet All For One as he asks All For One like what his plan is and all of that. As All For One is about to say anything, he then feels weird, like he feels a weird feeling in him as suddenly like some of his veins start pulsing up as All Might starts looking at the weapons like, is he using a quirk? But he doesn't have any quirks activated. As his veins start pulsing up and his muscles start spasming until he starts glowing. As he's wondering like what's going on until he recognizes the glow. As he realizes this is bad. As he runs out of the room as the entire room explodes. And All For One explodes with it. And he has died. All For One is dead. Very anticlimactic. I know. But yeah. As pretty much after this happens, nobody really knows that's happened as it's kept quite confidential. As a few weeks later, kind of the overhaul meeting does happen. As kind of Twice does bring in Overhaul, telling him like, this guy's pretty cool, he could be part of our crew or whatever. It's kind of Shigaraki kind of is like, well, who's this guy? He's kind of dumb. And Overhaul starts spouting absolute nonsense. Is pretty much he starts spouting nonsense as he's like, alright. As Magna does start charging towards Overhaul until Overhaul obliterates them, exploding the top half of their body as they die. Very sad. As after this, Compress does prepare to Compress does prepare to turn him into a marble until Deku shoots a thing towards a pebble towards Overhaul's arm, as Compress is shot by the Quirk erasing bullet, but he can't get his arm blown off, as Deku had blown scorched Overhaul's arm, causing him to reel it back in pain, therefore not burning or not removing Compress's arm. And after this happens, Shigaraki does charge towards Overhaul, as the rest of the fight goes on, as Overhaul does cause a human shield, causing him to disintegrate, as he hears a whizzing of a stone hurled towards him, as another man, the gigantic figure, the guy, I can't remember what his name is, but the gigantic guy, not Rapper, but the other guy, he stands in front of the explosion. However, this very severely dents him, causing him to fly back. However, it doesn't kill him, but it was definitely an impact, as this does also burn Kai, or Overhaul, badly, as he does get a little bit singed, a little bit of a second, third degree burn, but nothing too bad. As pretty much the rest of the meeting happens, as they tell that they should meet up or whatever, as after a couple more meetings, Deku, Twice, and Toga are told by Shigaraki to go to Overhaul, as pretty much as they arrive, Toga and Twice and Toga are told about their quirks, as just before the confession guy, or Namoto, does tell him that what's his quirk, Deku then raises his fat hand in a snapping gesture, as Deku says, "Now, why would I tell you what my quirk is? Especially since I already know what everybody's quirks are in this room. If you make me speak, if you use your quirk on me, Shin Namoto, I will blow up this entire building with a snap of my fingers." As Overhaul thinks he's bluffing, as he's like, "No, I'm really not bluffing, Kidzuki. You see, I've got an innate skill to place things where they're not really supposed to be put. I've got multiple grains of sand that I've placed around the area that I'm ready to detonate at all times. I'm not going to tell you all my quirks, or all the abilities of my quirk, but just know, anything I touch, I can snap out of existence. So, knowing this, I've also put a sand grain or a pebble on every single person in this room. Now, I do actually know everybody's quirks here in the room, like Shinimoto quirk Confession, which does force his victims to tell the truth. It's a pretty reliable quirk. Why aren't you part of the police instead of here with this dog of a man? Oh well, it's your choice, your life. I can't make you choose anything. But onto you, Harai Korono, or also known as Chronostasis, which your quirk is also called Chronostasis. It's a kind of fitting name, but why would you call yourself after your quirk? Oh well. Anyway, your quirk, Chronostasis, allows you to use your arrow-shaped hair to stab into victims, which slows down their movements. But the backside to it, you can't really use your quirk whilst you're moving. You have to be stationary while you stab into somebody, so that's kind of a downfall, but oh well, it's a very reliable quirk, so there you go. But then on to you, big dog, Kidzuki, or as you like to be called, Overhaul, with your quirk, also known as Overhaul. What is up with you people, and naming yourselves after your quirks? Like, that's just weird. Oh well, it doesn't matter, as your quirk, Overhaul, allows you to deconstruct and construct and reconstruct anything you physically touch, which is a pretty cool quirk. You've effectively got matter manipulation, but you have to touch the thing, which will be hard to touch me when I snap you out of existence when I'm quite far away. And I do have quite sharp reflexes, so by the time you take off your glove, you're already dead. Oh well. So, there you go. As he does explain, like, the rest of the 8 bullets quirks. As Rappa, he's got the shoulder cannons, as he can kind of dislocate his shoulders or whatever, or rotate his shoulders, causing bigger punches. The shield guy and his shields. This Mimic's quirk, his quirk Mimicry, allows him to kind of go into small building or small kind of objects like puppets or refrigerators, and for some reason he decides to be in a puppet. Bit weird. Oh well. As Overhaul, after he hears this, he is kind of impressed, as they are kind of told to do whatever. They are sent off to the rest of the room or rest of the building, given certain tasks. As Deku, over the next few hours, he does overhear about, like, with these certain kind of guards talking about this little girl, as that Overhaul is like nearly so close to getting the full bullet out, and just a few more experiments on the girl should be able to get it through. As Deku, he's messed up, but he's not that messed up. Like, he's still got empathy for little girls. He doesn't have empathy for little boys, but he's got empathy for little girls. So, no, that's just weird. Why am I just... I'm so sorry. I'm kind of tired, so everything's kind of coming out. But yeah, so he kind of doesn't have really empathy, but he still can't really let a little girl get experimented on. So later on, Deku, when he gets kind of some time to himself or whatever, he does pull out kind of his phone and ask Redestro what to do. As Redestro does text him back, telling him to pretty much level the building and bring the girl with him and take him back to Daika City, where pretty much Deku does so. As Deku, he kind of goes up to Twice and Toga, telling him, yeah, we're leaving. As Toga's wondering, like, why? Like, aren't the, like, Shigaraki told us to stay here. And Deku says, well, I wasn't bluffing about having sand everywhere in this building. As it kind of, he says this, Toga looks behind him, seeing small grains of sand fall out of his pants every few seconds. As she realizes what's about to happen. As pretty much after this happens, they kind of walk around as they do find Eri and kill the 2 guards around him, as they go in and grab Eri as Overhaul has gone out. As they go and grab Eri and escape the building. After this, Deku does tell them all to turn around, and he does tell Eri he'll never hurt you again, as he then brings up his finger and snaps, and like Thanos, erases the building, as the entire building causes, just the explosion causes a massive detonation, sending a mushroom cloud of smoke into the air, blowing up the entire building. As kind of Twice, being the comedic character that he is, he's got his hands over Eri's ears, as so she doesn't kind of burst her eardrums or anything like that. As pretty much this explosion kind of blows up the entire building, killing almost everybody in there. Well, killing everybody inside, nearly killing everyone inside. As they then see inside the rubble there is movement, as Overhaul does come out. As Overhaul, he looks up with a killer's intent in his eyes, as Deku, who had Eri kind of on his like shoulder arm kind of thing. You know when you've got like holding on to like a small child, like, and you've got their arms around, you've got your arm around their legs as they're sitting on one shoulder. That's kind of what's happening. As Deku, he does take Eri off his shoulder and place him like with Twice as he walks towards Overhaul. As kind of after this, Overhaul almost starts beginning like a big speech, as he starts saying, "You know, I almost liked you until you pulled off that little trick." As after this happens, Deku he pulls out a pebble or a stone or whatever, as he flings it, like just shoots it towards Overhaul. As Overhaul sees this, he brings his hand out and starts to grab for it, ready to disintegrate it. As he gets ready to disintegrate it, it detonates, blowing like his entire arm off. No, not even blowing it off, just incinerating his arm and blowing him far back, but not killing him. As Deku walks up to him, as he just looks at him just like, disappointing. I thought you'd be a bit more of a struggle, just a bit more of a challenge, you know? But, oh well. I guess that's life. As he then places his hand on kind of Overhaul's hand, as he incinerates and kind of detonates his hand, incinerating Overhaul's hand. Therefore, he cannot use his quirk. I haven't used that ability in a while, where he just grabs onto it and it just incinerates. But it's back. As he places his hand on kind of his hand and incinerates it. As that kind of happens, he then kind of allows Toga, as Toga goes in and kind of takes a lot of blood from Kidzuki, effectively killing him. Like, he's probably not dead, but he's damn close to it. As, yeah. After this, Deku does start, like, head for Daika City. As he does ask Toga and Twice if they do want to come with him. However, they do thank him for the offer, but they do politely refuse, as they should get back to kind of Shigaraki and the League of Villains, as they kind of need to get back. As after this, Deku kind of like accepts it. He's like, yeah, okay, sure. As he walks off with Eri, as they do arrive at Daika City. As he does kind of walk up, go to the tower, and sees Redestro. As Deku kind of tells Redestro and the rest of like the commanders of the Middle Liberation Army the situation. As Deku kind of explains, like, yo, like, Shigaraki, he's a bit of a problem. He's kind of a bit of a loose cannon, but oh well. Anyways, yeah, so that's kind of a thing. So what should we do? There's also this little girl, Eri. Her ability is like she's able to rewind time or something. So that'd be pretty cool. Like, that's a very cool ability. And yeah, like, you know, imagine if I had that ability in my explosions. Like, I kind of give a character an explosion, they blow up and it rewinds time. A little bit of a JoJo's reference there, but anyway, yeah, as he kind of tells them the situation, as Redestro kind of tells them, like, yeah, Shigaraki is a bit of a problem, as Deku says, yeah, he probably does need to get eliminated. The rest of the League villains are fine. Like, there is one guy, Darby, who he does suspect is a certain person, but he doesn't really care, so, oh well. But, yeah, the rest of the League of Villains, they're kind of alright people. But, as this happens, they kind of talk about the rest of this. As, at the League of Villains base, Shigaraki and the rest of the people, they do get a notification, as they do see Deku in a chair with blood all over him, as they do see Redestro, as he tells them pretty much the same thing as with Jiren, or whatever his name is. Oh, Jawn, I don't really know his name, but you know who I'm talking about. The League of Villains guy, you know, that kind of guy. Jiren, yeah, that's his name. Jiren. As pretty much that kind of goes on, as everyone's like, well, we gotta save him. Like, he's a kind of alright fella, isn't he? As Shigaraki's like, not really. Like, we're alright with not having him. He was a bit of a loose cannon or whatever. But Shigaraki's like, no, we really shouldn't. But then Darby also kind of agrees with this. He's like, no, we shouldn't. We're better without him. But the rest of them, they're kind of like, you know, he's an alright fella, wasn't he? Like, he kind of kept us secure, he kept us good, he kept us going. He's kind of like you, Shigaraki, but, you know, less child. And yeah, so they do end up deciding, like, why as well. Like, it does take a lot of convincing. Like, Shigaraki, he's like, you know, I really don't like this guy. I would rather him not be here and just let the guy kill him or whatever. But oh well. As pretty much the League of Villains do arrive. As they do arrive, they do see Deku standing out there in front of them with arms outstretched. As they're wondering, like, this is pretty weird. What's going on? As they kind of see this, Deku kind of announces, welcome to Daika City. Like, welcome. Now, I know this is pretty weird, like, you know, me being here when you just saw a video of me bloodied and bullied and butchered and all of that on a chair. But really, that was kind of just staged just to get you guys here, because I knew that Shigaraki wouldn't want us to come here for no random reason. So, yeah, if you guys are wondering, welcome to the Meta Liberation Army base. Here we go. If you guys are wondering what this is, we kind of fight for the rights to use our quirks and to remove quirk suppression. So, it's pretty much what, like, Shigaraki wants to do, but, like, way less violent. But oh well. Yeah, that really doesn't make any sense for what's going to happen later on in the video. Kind of a spoilers, but oh well. As he kind of tells them, like, hey guys, like, do you want to join us? Eh? It's a pretty cool idea. You know, that's a good idea. You should join us. But, you know, if you don't want to, that's fine. But anyway, like, come on. You know, like, it would be pretty cool if you guys could join us. you know, we could be an unstoppable team, or whatever. As Shigaraki, he's just immediately like, no, you're evil, or whatever. Yeah, he's like, no, like, just straight up, no, like, I knew that coming here was a bad idea, just, let's go, team. As Shigaraki, Darby, and Spinner, they do kind of just immediately refuse, and they're like, alright, you staged your own death, you told us to come here, you deserve death. As the rest of the kind of League of Villains are kind of conflicted, they're wondering, like, what's going on, like, should we, like, we do kind of like this guy, but, you know, oh well. But as this happens, kind of, the rest of the a much larger force of the Metal Liberation Army is revealed. As this happens, kind of, Dig's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, like, I do have friends as well, so, do you want to join our big friend group, or join these losers? I feel like such a... Oh my goodness. But yeah. As this happens, kind of, Darby, he just, like, scoffs as he starts igniting flames with his hands, as he charges towards Deku, as he sends a giant jet burst towards Deku, as an explosion explodes, kind of detonates just in front of Deku, causing a big shockwave to hit up and block the fire. I know, that's pretty insane. It doesn't really block it for long though, as the fire does come through, but it's enough time for Deku to weave around it and flick a stone directly into Darby's kind of forehead, making it bleed a little bit. As he's like, ow, like, what's that? As he sees a little bit of blood has been drawn. As he then realizes the predicament he's in, as Deku gives off a smug grin as he snaps his fingers, as Darby's kind of face and the rest of his body starts getting distorted as it then blows up, causing nothing to be left of him. As after this, kind of, Shigaraki and the rest of the villains are kind of shocked, but they're wondering, like, he kind of deserved it. But, you know, as Deku, he's like, alright, truth be told, Shigaraki, if you don't join us, you're gonna die anyway, so... yeah, the rest of you guys, I truthfully do not care, like, you're kind of nice people. Darby, I didn't really like, he's kind of arrogant and a bad person, so, you know, didn't really want him to join us, but if he did want to join us, it would have been fine, but really didn't want him to. But the rest of you guys, you're actually alright people, so, yeah, if you want to join. But truth be told, like, Shigaraki, you're too dangerous to be kept alive if you don't join us, so... yeah. As Toga, Twice, and Compress do kind of start, they do look between like Shigaraki and Deku as they do start walking towards Deku. As Spinner looks towards Shigaraki and then looks towards Deku as he draws his swords towards Deku. As Deku, he just shakes his head and just... oh, so disappointing. Oh well. As Shigaraki, he does, and Spinner, they both charge kind of towards Deku. As this happens, Shigaraki goes to grab Deku's face, as Deku grabs, kind of parries the kind of hand away from him, as he grabs Spinner by the side of the face, and grabs Shigaraki by the other side as they smash heads, as Deku then releases him and snaps his fingers as both of them detonate, killing them both. And after this, the rest of the kind of Metal Liberation Army and the League of Villains and all those guys, they do kind of leave as the League of Villains, or the rest of them, they do go up and meet up with Redestro, as Redestro does greet the new members and put them under Deku's command. As a few other characters, like other minor people, are put under his command, not really deserving a name, but Deku has got a gigantic squadron of his own. Like, he's a big man. But yeah, so after this, Redestro does decide to do a gigantic announcement stating that they, like, towards all Metal Liberation Army members, as they do go up on stage, kind of like how it was when the League of Villains were announced to be part of the Metal Liberation Army, but they're kind of not. But anyway, as this kind of happens, Deku and the rest of the League of Villains are up on stage with, as Deku is up there, the rest of the team's up there, as it does go out, and they do kind of announce the attack and downfall of Hero Society, and that they shall have their quirks, the right to use their quirks once again, and that the kind of the subjugation and the enforcement of them not using their quirks shall end very soon. As Deku looks down, he does see a familiar face, as after the kind of stage, Deku does approach this man. As he walks up to him, as he sees him, as he's like, I know why I recognize you. As he does see him, he sees a tall man in a cape. He seems to be a hero. A tall man in a cape and quite a large chin. As Deku, he sees him and knows who he is. As Slide and Go thinks that Deku does look familiar. It's Deku, he kind of wraps his arm around Slide and Go. He's like, hey, and like, come on with me. Like, I want to have a talk with you. As he takes him outside. As he talks about him, he's like, you know, do you ever remember, like, this one kid, like, that you kind of grabbed? You did, like, you kind of adopted him, but not really. But yeah, you kind of grabbed him off the street after you brutally murdered his parents, and then kind of took him in, and then beat him and brutalized him with your girlfriend or partner or whatever she was. And then she kind of, he had a kind of explosive kind of quirk, you know, kind of like me, you know. I have an explosive quirk, you know. It's kind of convenient, isn't it? And like the fact that I know all this stuff about you. As Slide and Go does realize who he is, and he's like, Izuku, you. How can someone so horrid and disgusting as you become a leader of the Metal Liberation Army? As Deku's like, well, because I'm better than you. As he raises his hand up, and kind of Slide and Go does realize that Deku had been holding on to him, as he realizes what's going to happen. As he's like, no, Izuku, wait just a second, I'm sorry! As Deku then snaps his fingers, and Slide and Go explodes. It's not a big explosion, he doesn't want to cause a ruckus, but an explosion nonetheless, as the rest of Slide and Go is kind of incinerated and kind of just kills him. After this, the Metal Liberation Army do kind of prepare their attack on the heroes. As they do attack, and they have gotten control of Dr. Garaki and all of his Nomus, as Deku has primed bombs on all of the Nomus, and they kind of just forced Dr. Garaki's hand, and yeah, they forced him to join them, pretty much. So yeah, so he does that, as they kind of have the Nomus become suicide bombers, pretty much. As a giant fight kind of ensues, as the Nomus do attack, as the rest of the Metal Liberation Army follow suit. As during this, there is not a lot of resistance at the start, since a lot of the heroes were mortally wounded by Deku's first attack and other attacks as well. However, this does not last long, as more heroes do end up arriving as it progressively becomes a losing battle. As kind of during this, Bakugo and Kirishima, they do kind of arrive as kind of the rest of the heroes and hero students, they do kind of arrive. Some of them do stay back or whatever. As this kind of happens, Deku orders the rest of the MLA to kind of do a strategic retreat, as he orders them to retreat, as he gets twice to quickly clone a bunch of clones and a bunch of people, but to make sure that no one knows who the real Twice is, or else our game is over. As after this, kind of the rest of the kind of Meta Liberation Army do retreat, as Deku is in there in the middle with a bunch of the fake Meta Liberation Army characters, as there a giant battle ensues, as a bunch of the heroes do start surrounding Deku, as Deku then kind of reveals that he has kind of he kind of pulls out a rock in his vest, as they're wondering like what this is, until Deku lets out a giant grin, as the thing is pulsing with an orange and blue colour, as they're wondering like, no, it couldn't be, as Deku snaps his fingers and detonates every single atom in that kind of rock, causing an atomic bomb, blowing up everybody for miles and kilometers, and just a large landscape, as a gigantic explosion happens, and a giant atomic bomb explodes, as nothing is left. No one can see any remains. There are some burnt kind of tissue or whatever, or burnt kind of corpses on the further away, and closer there are less and less heroes, as the closest thing they could see to the center of the explosion is a burnt domino mask with a spiky kind of black thing on it with a little bit of orange on it. However, there is only a little bit of that left, and a couple of little tiny rags or whatever that could have been their hero costume, which was a dark black, green and orange. As if you're wondering, Bakugo did go in to explode Deku before he let off the explosion, but he was too late, as there is literally nothing left of Deku. It's like he was never there in the first place. However, that is where I'm going to end this part off. I know, wow, that was an emotional kind of roller coaster. It was pretty whack, it was pretty insane, you know, it was just crazy. But anyway, that's the end of What If Deku Had an Explosion Quirk. If you guys kind of want to think of an ending of how the rest of it would go, whether the heroes do prevail and defeat the rest of the Meta Liberation Army, or whether the Meta Liberation Army does defeat the heroes, you guys can think of it. Go up with your own imagination. But this is kind of my end of year present to everybody, is the final product of this series. I would do more, but it took me like a couple days to get this kind of script kind of thing out, and I haven't really had, it's more of a bullet pointed script, but still, and I haven't really had a lot of time since I've been up north, kind of in my country. I'm like kind of middle area of my country, but I've been way up north with family, so I haven't really been able to record or write any scripts for any videos, so yeah, that's kind of sad. But anyway, that's how that's gonna go. So I hope you guys did enjoy this part. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, all of that jazz. If you've made it to this point, just comment any kind of ideas, or comment how you think the video and the rest of the situation would go. Whether you think the heroes would win, whether you think the heroes would lose, what you think happened to Deku, as he could not be dead. No, there's a very, very high chance like that. I don't think a man could survive the focal point of an atomic bomb. So, yeah, that's kinda... I don't think there's a very high chance of Deku living. But if he is, comment down what you think would happen to him. So, yeah. Anyway, I do hope you guys did enjoy this part. So, be sure to like, subscribe, all of that jazz. Remember, God is awesome, you guys are too, and yeah, I do once again want to thank my boy Saint for the music of this video, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one and in the next year. Laters.